Hello, friends. I am Chevee. Welcome to my shed. How are you today? How's life in your world? How's things where you are? I hope it's fantastic. Hope everything here is great. Everything here is wonderful. And today, I want to talk about Xenoblade Chronicles 3. I finished it. About 107 hours, I think. 110, something like that. And I'll tell you up front, I enjoyed myself. Now, I have a history with this franchise, as there have been 3 mainline games and there's one other game. But I had not played any of these games prior to the Switch. So the Switch came out and Xenoblade Chronicles 2 came out. And a bunch of people said that the Xenoblade Chronicles games are amazing, you should play it. So I bought it, I played it. One of my favorite games ever. Just a fascinating game, a really rich world, really cool storytelling, really fun over the top, anime style craziness. Had a blast. Later, after Xenoblade 1 came out, Xenoblade Chronicles, or Xenoblade 2 came out, they re-released Xenoblade Chronicles 1 on the Switch. Got it. I was super excited for it because, of this. And it was okay. Like, it's not... If you don't know anything about the series, so there's 3 games now, these 2 games are kind of... I don't want to say they're an anthology, but they're standalones. They're their own thing. They're each similar... there are similar creatures and similar character types, but the mechanisms of the gameplay are very unique. And the stories are... and the worlds are unique. They have different reasons for things existing, different things, being different is part of the point of this. When you get to the end game, there's some similarities that you go, oh, okay. Well, that kind of makes sense. Xenoblade 3 tries to tie all that together and gives you the complete story of how these 2 games came to be and what is the result of that. And that's this game. So, I will tell you, I'm not going to try to spoil too much, but there's going to be spoilers in here. I did not enjoy 3 or 1 nearly as much as I enjoyed 2. 2 was fantastic. Just a fantastic game. 3 is a very good game, but there's a lot wrong with it that I just felt was like, I don't know. It felt weird. Story-wise, unbelievable. I really enjoyed the story. I really enjoyed how they tied these 2 games together to create this 3rd game. I really enjoyed the character stories. I enjoyed the side quests and all of the various random characters that you help out throughout the game. I enjoyed all of that. But the gameplay was pretty lacking. Combat wasn't interesting. In all 3 of these games, combat is auto-attack based, so you just walk up to an enemy and you just start, it attacks. And then you have these things called arts and talent arts and skills. And these arts are things that you can trigger as the player based on, some of them will reset based on time, just a cooldown, and some of them reset based on auto attacks. Certain number of auto attacks, you can hit this art, you can do your arts, and then those arts have combos that you can trigger. And so you'll do a break on an opponent, then you can topple them, and then you can smash them or whatever. So there is some player interaction in the gameplay, but what I found in 3, combat was much more prevalent. Like, you can't just walk through the world in 3. In the first 2, you could avoid enemies pretty easily. In this one, you cannot. They attack you on sight constantly. I mean, there are pacifist animals, but you're getting attacked a heck of a lot more. And the combat's not interesting. Like, it's really just waiting to hit a button, and that's it. And then they have these chain attacks, which are kind of like all the characters get to attack in sequence. And if you can do good enough, you can keep refreshing the chain attack and do it again. You can do it up to 3 times or 4, whatever. Anyway, the combat was not interesting. And so, couple the non-interesting combat with the amount of side quests that are in this game, there are a ridiculous amount of side quests. And they're all very richly told. They're big stories. They're not just stupid, go get me 5 berries. They're like these, they all have story behind them. just pages and pages. You're going to be clicking a lot or listening to a lot of dialogue. There's a ton of story behind everything that happens in this game. And there's almost too much. And I say that because very early in the game, if you do all of the side quests as presented, saying that you get a new side quest and you go do it before you continue the main quest, you're going to constantly be about 10 levels higher than the main quest whenever you get back to the main quest. Which means that you're OP the entire game, and that makes combat even less interesting. Because you're just like, why am I even bothering? You know? So I did almost, I mean, I don't want to say I did almost all of it. There's still a lot I didn't do. There's a lot of hero quests I didn't do. I'm sure there's lots of side quests I didn't do because I didn't fully explore every little possible thing. But the entire last half of the game or more, I was OP the entire time. The final fight, there's a pretty big level that you go through. I was 10 to 12 levels above everything, and it just was like, this isn't even really a challenge. I just walked right on through it. And so the uninteresting combat coupled with being overpowered, basically, yeah, it's my fault. I went and did all the things, and I could have just continued the main quest and beat the game, on a normal difficulty level. Instead, I chose to be OP. It just made it... I found myself hitting the auto battle. There is an auto battle option. I found myself hitting that button and setting my Switch down and doing something else while combat was happening because I just didn't care. It just was not fun. So that I didn't like that. And that's the reason why 2 is still my favorite. 2, the combat system in 2 was fantastic. And it had all those combos, it had all those breaks. It was just a really fun and interesting combat system. This one was just boring. It just felt, I don't know, it felt like I didn't really need to be there. And so hitting that auto battle button and just walking away was sometimes the best thing to do. As with this being a JRPG, the characters you're fighting, even under-leveled characters. So you'll find in areas there are what I like to call surprise enemies. So there's enemies that pop out of the ground or whatever. And those enemies will always attack you, regardless of your level. So, once you become like 5, 6, 10, it's based on kind of like the level range that you're in. Lower level enemies won't attack you anymore. But those surprise enemies always will. And so you might get attacked by a surprise enemy that's 20 levels lower than you. And that combat still takes like 2 minutes because they have a ridiculous amount of health, right? And so you're just, why? Why is this happening? There was a lot of that. And so, I kind of had to trudge through that. I kind of had to force myself to get through it. But I'm glad I did because the end story, the way they wrapped these 2 games up, tie it all together, was really, really well done. It was really fun and engaging. I said it the other day when I was talking about this. You're reading like an entire novel and watching 2 movies by the time you get done with this thing. 110 hours that I played, probably 20 of that was just reading or listening, right? Maybe even more than 20. Probably half my time was spent reading or listening. There are some story chapters. There's 7 chapters in this game, and some of the chapter breaks, like the cutscenes and little intermittent battles before the next cutscene, some of them took like 2 hours, like an hour and a half, 2 hours. The last fight was like a 2-hour process, from start to finish. There's a fight, and then we have a cutscene, then another fight, then a cutscene, and then another fight, like a standard kind of thing. That was like a 2.5-hour process. Big game. Very, very fun, though. If you like Xenoblade, or if you've never played the games, I would suggest starting with 2. If you want to give them a shot, that's not 2. I would suggest starting with 2. I think it's still the best. But if you've never jumped in and you want to play 3, you go for it. It is going to talk about stuff that happened in the first 2 games, and it is going to tie these 2 games up. But you don't have to have played them to understand any of that. There are characters in here that seem very, very familiar, that look very, very familiar. There are places in here that are very, very familiar, and that's all intentional, right? But if you've never played these 2, it's fine. Like, you don't need to. It is a massive, very well done game, except for the whole combat thing. So that's my take on Xenoblade Chronicles 3. If you've played it, let me know what you think in the comments below. Have you played any of the Xenoblade games? Do you like any of them? I have not played... there was one called DX, I think, and I've not played that. And I guess it's kind of like a completely different thing. And I might go try to figure out a way to play that. So, if you've played that, let me know. Thank you for being here as always. Thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing, being amazing friends and wonderful people. I really appreciate you. And I'll see you again tomorrow. Today's word you should know that sounds smart is oeuvre, I think. It's a noun meaning an artist or writer's composer's body of work treated as a whole. Esmeralda is familiar with and adores all of Puccini's oeuvre, but many find his operas overly mawkish. Oeuvre. O-E-U-V-R-E. That's, I mean... Oeuvre or oeuvre? It's got 2 capital O's. I don't know how I'm supposed to pronounce that. I'm saying oeuvre. I don't know. I don't speak that language.